So if we move on to the third letter, I've got an R now, and I think that rightly stands for the very important role perfume has in replacing the often highly objectionable base odours that you find in products. It's an unfortunate fact of life that nothing smells of nothing, and every component of the product will bring, to varying degrees, its own characteristic odour into the mix. These are often highly objectionable. The surface active agents that are key to delivering cleaning in household products, well, they often smell of solvent and petrol. Natural fatty acids and soaps, they can be waxy, green, almost cucumber-like. Conditioning agents and polymers used to make laundry soft. They smell of amines, a bit like raw fish, really highly desirable smell your product should have. And the biological enzymes that are important cleaning ingredients in detergents, they smell meaty often. Or as we used to say in the Newcastle Technical Centre, foisty. Should explain that foisty was a word we invented because we couldn't find a word in the dictionary to adequately describe this sweaty, nasty off odour from enzymes. The fact that we were the only ones who knew what it meant was quite useful sometimes. It's doubly unfortunate, though, that these off odours are often due to low-level impurities in the raw materials, things that really you don't want to have there in the first place. But because they're there in low levels, they're very powerful. You can smell them, but they're very difficult to get rid of. And so the role of perfume in helping to mitigate this effect and to replace these horrible off odours with something that's more attractive is really important if you want to give the consumer an experience that he or she is really going to enjoy. Sometimes the odours aren't in the raw material itself, but they appear when the product starts to get used. A good example are some of the bleaches that are used in detergents, where if you drop them into water, as the product gets used, vinegary, acetic chemical smells begin to become apparent. And lastly, it's also true that some of these odours are so long-lasting and tenacious that you don't just detect them in the product or when the product's being used. You can even smell them after the product has been used, be it the hair that's been rinsed in a shampoo still smells a little bit fishy, or the laundry that's been washed in a detergent smells of the soap or the surfactant that was in that product. So the role that perfume has in terms of mitigating these effects and providing something that is much more pleasant is a really important one in itself. That brings me to the midpoint of my 7 letters, and I think it's appropriate that the midpoint letter, F, should stand for one of the most important and pivotal dimensions of the performance of perfume, and that's its ability to deliver a fresh odour impression that is demanded by the consumer actually after the use of the product. That might mean providing an attractive, long-lasting perfume on the hair after the use of a shampoo, or delivering a blooming room freshening effect after the use of a surface cleaner, or providing a long-lasting freshness on fabrics after the use of a detergent or a fabric conditioner. Achieving that is something that's really important to the consumer, to most consumers. And so there's been a tremendous amount of work, both done in my previous company and many other companies, to try to deliver against these needs. And I think it's worth going into in a little bit more detail, because that's where I think some of the most interesting, innovative work has actually occurred. Again, let me use the laundry detergent as the category to try and illustrate what's happened here. Consumers buy laundry detergents not just to make their clothes look clean, but to make them smell fresh and clean. And that's, for them, really important. And what they mean by that is not just fresh and clean during the wash process, but once they stack the laundry, when they're ironing it, when they're putting it away, and also when the laundry is taken out of the cupboard and used or worn. If a number of years ago you were to schematically look at the amount of freshness that a consumer perceived he or she was getting from the laundry detergent at the different stages of the wash process, all the way from dosing the product through taking the laundry out of the washing machine, drying it, then ironing it and working with it and finally wearing it, and you look at the profile that they perceived they were getting relative to what they ideally would like to have got, you see rather an interesting situation. That on the product itself, the amount they're getting is pretty much what they want, maybe even a little bit more than they want. There's also pretty good balance when they're unloading the washing machine with the wet laundry. But thereafter, as the laundry has been dried, and particularly as it's taken out of the cupboard and it starts to get worn, there's an increasing divergence. So the consumer is saying, we want more freshness than we're able to be experiencing from our current product. And lots of folks have been working hard to try and meet that need. And a number of technologies have gone into the market in different categories successfully to do precisely that. So I'd like to look at maybe two of them. Well, just before I do that, I should also mention that another factor is that on the dry fabrics, the consumer is not smelling not only enough freshness, but not smelling anything like the full perfume. They're only really experiencing the least volatile base notes of the perfume. So they're getting a much less attractive smell than was designed for the product. So let's have a look at the two technologies involved. And the first, and I apologize to the chemists amongst you for my rather noddy diagrams, is pro-perfume technology. And a pro-perfume is a molecule which itself probably has no smell, but which consists of an adduct, a chemical adduct between a perfume material, perfume molecule, in this case represented by the, I think it's a rose or a tulip, I'm not sure which, a rose I hope, which is combined with, let's call it an anchor molecule, that together will form an entity, the pro-perfume, that has the ability to be more deposited onto the fabrics during the washing process than was the original perfume material itself. And once it's on the fabrics, as they dry and as they are worn, it gradually dissociates, releasing the perfume material. So what you end up with is a stronger smell than you would have got from the perfume material itself. In some cases, you may have a perfume material you wouldn't smell at all on the dry fabrics without the pro-perfume. So you'll have more of it, and you'll have a different new character to be able to deliver to the consumer. And that type of technology has got into the market in places like detergent and fabric conditioner, very successfully. Microcapsules are a somewhat different approach. There you've got, if you like, little cannonballs, little particles which have a core of perfume that's surrounded by a water-insoluble thin shell. And these survive the washing process. They get retained to a degree by filtration just onto the fabrics. And as the fabrics, after they've dried, are handled and worn, the rubbing, the shear of the fabrics releases the perfume note from the center of the particle, and you again can get a stronger amount of freshness, and now, in this case, a full perfume rather than simply the very base notes of a perfume. And these again have got into the market over recent years in a number of categories. So we're now on to the third last letter, and that's a U, standing, I think, for the role that perfume performs in underlining and reinforcing the performance of a product. Perfume plays a very important role in really signaling and reinforcing product efficacy. You know, the right smell can provide a strong reassurance for the effectiveness of a product. If you think about something like an antibacterial wipe, how how is the consumer to know that it's actually worked? Well, they can't by looking. But if there is a fresh odour delivered, that's a powerful signal that the product has done what it was intended to do. Of course, it's well known that beyond that, if you test two products with consumers that are absolutely identical, apart from the perfumes that they contain, then the one with the better, more attractive, more appropriate perfume will often appear to the consumer to be working a lot better. So the towels washed in a fabric conditioner will seem softer, the laundry washed in a detergent will seem cleaner, skin that's been present in dishwashing will seem softer. Of course, the flip side of that is also true. Without the perfume, the consumer will feel that the product is not working as well as he or she thought it ought to. Second last letter, an M. Well, I think that could stand for the ability of perfumes to play an important part in mitigating the presence of the malodors that develop during the use of a product. These may be the nasty odors that come when you're doing a bit of dishwashing, fishy or garlic odors, or indeed the sweaty smells that unfortunately build up and are quite tenacious on laundry, on bed linen, on socks and undergarments. These are effects that the product, if it's going to deliver on the promise of, for example, delivering fresh, clean laundry, has got to be able to counteract. And perfume has a very important role in being able to do that. The perfumes differ a lot in terms of their ability to be effective in this respect, and they have to be specifically designed to try to maximize that. There are a number of ways in which they can work. The two most important, probably, are by them being designed to have an odor character that will merge with the malodor, rather than the way that one of the earlier speakers was saying that you can have two materials that merge together and it makes it more difficult to detect them individually. Similarly, you can have a perfume that merges with the malodor and it makes the malodor more difficult to detect. You can, in some more limited cases, also have some perfume materials that can chemically react with certain malodors, removing them from the system, removing their contribution to odor by the production of a chemical byproduct. So that brings me to the final category of benefit, and I've used E there to stand for, let's call them extra benefits. You know, everything I have mentioned so far depends fundamentally on the smell of the perfume. But there are some benefits that perfume can deliver that go beyond that and have nothing really to do with the smell of the perfume. An obvious one is antibacterial action. It's been known for a long time that some essential oils used in perfumes, like clove oil, wintergreen, birch oil, and thyme oil, that these indeed do have antibacterial activity, often due to the presence within the oils of high levels of phenolic materials such as eugenol, salicylic acid, and thymol. And perfumes have been created with high levels either of these essential oils or of the active components, and used to provide measurable antibacterial activity in different categories.